Hi, great freaking things, everyone. Some of you guys that are in high school right now, I kind of envy you, because I like to read. I didn't really like to read in high school, but if I did, well, I read comic books in high school, but if I like to read like I do now in high school, it'd be so much fun. I'm looking through these reading lists, trying to find this book that I read about. I can't remember what it was called, but it's like, you get like 100 or so books on a reading list, and you get to pick one that you want to read, and then you get to like do a book report on it, which is dumb because you could just read the book if you wanted to know what the book was about. Well, it was some kid making a report about it. But like on this list, you got Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is a good choice. Then you got this book here called The Grand Design, which is about the laws of the universe and nature of reality. And do the laws of nature, are they suspended when miracles occur? See, I could take that and I could run with it, and I could make something that's just borderline offensive to maybe piss the teacher off if she's like a right-wing Christian, but not really enough that she could really blame me for it. You know, I'd really like to walk that line and see what I could get away with, kind of like an Ender's Game when Valentine and Peter do their Demosthenes and Locke thing and put shit on the internet. I think it'll be fun to like fuck around and like really be clever in high school. Man, it'll be fun. But anyway, I made a video earlier today. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I was ranting about stuff. I forgot to mention two things that lately have been kind of annoying me. One of them is soundtracks when I'm watching a movie or a TV show. Like if it's an action scene and I like the music in the background that makes the action sound cooler and look cooler, then I like it. But otherwise, I don't need music to tell me how I'm supposed to feel. I don't need like spooky music. Like if somebody's doing something that's supposed to be scary, just turn the music off. Just let them make the noises they would normally make, and it's scary enough. You add spooky music to it, they usually build up to something that never comes, which I hate when that happens. Or it's just like they do the stupid sound effects when something scary happens. It's better if it's just quiet, because that's like reality. It makes it seem more real. And not just scary things, but when there's just jaunty music like you're walking around. I mean, it just adds to the realism just to have no music in the background, because you're actually hearing what's actually there. Unless you're hearing like cameramen walking around and stuff like that, you gotta blend out. Because I saw something the other day that really looked too real. Like you could hear the people in the back. Like my mom and dad have surround sound. They got two big speakers over here and two speakers behind you. And I was watching something in HD, and the HD almost made it look worse because it looked more like a documentary of behind the scenes of the show I was watching. Like you could hear people with equipment and shit. I don't want to hear that. Stick to the 2D, no more 3D bullshit, and no more 3D surround sound. That kind of messes it up. But the other thing I don't like is laugh tracks. I almost cannot watch a show anymore that has a laugh track. Like 2.5 Men. I can't watch that shit now. I mean, I've never liked 2.5 Men, but like Big Bang Theory has a laugh track. That's one of the few that I can stand. If I hear some fake laughter and a joke, it just takes me out of the moment, and I get pissed off, and it doesn't sound funny anymore because I know they're telling me where I'm supposed to laugh. And a lot of people use it way too much. Like they have laugh tracks in parts that aren't even funny. Like they haven't got to the punchline yet, and they're still like people are tittering laughing. But anyway, that's two things. Not really what this video is about. This video is about books, because somebody asked me a while back to make a new video about what books I've been reading lately, and I thought I would do one better, and I'll tell you about books that I want to read but I haven't had a chance to read and probably won't have time to read in the next year or so. And of course it's 2012, so everything's going to blow up and won't have time ever. So I'm going to do a list of the books that I wanted to read but never got around to. But first of all, what I've been reading lately, I've been reading a lot of Robert Heinlein books. Like I read this, Man Who Sold the Moon, read Stranger in a Strange Land. This one was really morally and philosophically based and had a lot of weird conundrums in it. It had this guy from Mars, but he was human, sorta, and then he could do stuff like make things disappear by turning it 90 degrees in every direction. Like if you've ever seen the thing about the 10 dimensions, and Flatlanders going to 3 dimensions, you can't see the 3rd dimension, and 3rd dimension going to 4th dimension. If you could twist like a cube at 90 degrees at every angle, it would look like a tesseract, and you can't really see a tesseract because we're in 3rd dimension, but if you could cast a shadow of it, then it would look like when you draw a cube in 2D, but it's just weird. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff that Robert Heinlein does, like Moon is a Harsh Mistress. This is another one where he has like polyamorous relationships. Like in this one, you have line marriages where you have people that are on a colony on the moon. You have multiple husbands, multiple wives, which is called polyamory, I think. And then polygamy is like the Mormons with their one man and many wives kind of thing. So I've been reading this book here, John Scalzi's Your Hate Mail Will Be Graded, which is basically a 2008 to 1998, his blog called whatever. It's like a bunch of the best entries from his blog, and he's like really against this kind of stuff because a lot of people don't like Robert Heinlein because of his thing about polygamy and stuff or whatever. But I think it kind of makes sense. Like if you're on a colony way on another planet, you're gonna have to come up with some different ways of having relationships and stuff than the normal. It's not that absurd. And Farmer in the Sky, I read that too. Pretty interesting how they thought things would work. See, Robert Heinlein was a writer in the 50s, I think, in that time between going to the moon and the first nuclear bomb. So they had the first nuclear bomb, so they knew kind of like E equals MC squared and stuff, but they hadn't actually gone to the moon yet, so they didn't know what other planets would be like, and they thought this was a book about farming on Ganymede, which is the moon of Jupiter, and they thought you could just take like some soil from Earth and combine it with like some crushed up rocks, and then eventually all the microbes and organisms in our Earth would multiply and get into that Earth, and you could make like topsoil up there. But I think that wouldn't work because I've been studying about mushrooms and how mushrooms kind of started life on Earth before plants 400 million years later, and you need mushrooms to get the mycelium into the soil to pull the like silica and rocks and minerals out and then put other stuff back into it. So I don't know if that'd work or not. And they also had this idea that you could take rocket ships and just fill them up with water, and then by using E equals MC squared, you could directly transform mass into energy, because you have this huge speed of light number, which when you multiply it by the mass, you get a huge amount of energy for a little amount of mass. So they thought they'd just take spaceships and just drop them into the ocean, suck up a bunch of water, and take off to like other planets. Maybe go to like a gas giant where there's like a big ocean of methane or some kind of gas, whatever kind of matter, anything you want really. You'd want something liquid, because if you just put a bunch of rocks in it, you're going to have a bunch of empty space, and it's weird. But you have a mass reactor that just like converts gas of any kind into energy, and that's your fuel. Oh, the other book by Robert Heinlein, Starship Troopers, great movie. I read this a while back, and my favorite part of this book is when he's talking about that teacher from the movie, he lost his arm. His name is Mr. Dubois, and they're talking about corporal punishment. This was really good. I wanted to just read you like a couple pages from this. Now, would that be considered copyright on YouTube if I would just read from a book? Is it copyright just to show you the cover of a book? Because this is like a picture from a movie. Wouldn't that be considered copyright? I don't know. I don't think anyone would complain, but it's so picky now. Like, if I had a poster back there of some movie, would that be copyright infringement? Who knows? Anyway, I was kind of against corporal punishment before this, but then when I read it, it kind of makes a lot of sense, and it kind of compares putting people in jail to training your dog. If you train your dog, like say your dog poops in the house, and you rub his nose in it and you yell at him and then you hit him, like the yelling at him doesn't do anything because he doesn't understand English. Rubbing his nose in it kinda does, but he can't really tell you're mad at him until you actually hit the dog. Like if you put somebody in jail as a juvenile, they hardly have any sentence. The jails and juvenile detention are really nice, so it's not really like a punishment. You get out and you do crimes again. Like if you put a dog in the house, he's going to poop in the house again because you hadn't really done anything to him unless you beat him. So then the kids become adult offenders, and then they go to adult jail, and then they're there with a lot of other criminals, and you learn more criminal behavior because you're with other criminals. And eventually what we end up doing in society is we wait till they commit a heinous crime that's bad enough for us to kill them and invoke the death penalty. And he says, what if you had a dog? Like, would it make sense to just like let him poop in the house until eventually you shoot him in the head? And makes the point that you have to actually beat somebody. And then he says here that corporal punishment must be so unusual as to be significant to deter and to instruct. So you can't beat somebody all the time because that just drives somebody crazy, but you have to beat them on important things so that they actually learn a lesson from it. It's really weird. Like, you have to read this to understand everything, because I'm just kind of throwing it all out there. But in the book, they would like tie somebody up, and they'd whip them on the back like with the lashes, like they did in the movie. But they had a really nice society, and this is like them in the future looking back at us, at our present society, where we don't allow people to be whipped. And he said pretty much we would have died out if they hadn't come up with this system of whipping people. publicly flogging them, you know, making them embarrassed for their crime and really make them understand it. Which that might be the right thing to do. I don't know. Kind of makes a good point here. Anyway, I highly recommend this book if you haven't read it. What else have I been reading? Oh, I talked about this book before, John Ringo's Live Free or Die. I cannot stress enough how good this book is. I think I told you what it was about, like an alien comes to Earth, or somebody seeding stargates, pretty much like Stargate. Then you have all these alien civilizations that come to your planet, and some of them are threatening you, and some of them like want to hold you hostage because you don't have good technology, and some of them want to trade, some of them are nice. So this one guy, Tyler Vernon, he figures out that they like maple syrup, and he becomes a billionaire trading the maple syrup for atomic circuitry that we don't have access to. And a tiny atomic circuit is big enough, or it's got enough computing power to replace a whole server farm of like a YouTube or a Microsoft server farm, whatever, right? He gets like a handful of these from like some maple syrup that he sold this guy. So then he ends up buying all the maple syrup farms in the world, and he starts this big war over it, and he throws out these other aliens that are like taking over his planet by... He eventually just goes and gets these implants that nobody else has, and he gets access to the galactic internet, pretty much, and he learns all this shit nobody else knows, and he's more powerful than anybody on Earth. But he's a nice dude, and like the United States government is pissed because he's more powerful than they are, and he just kind of holds it again. He doesn't really act like he gives a shit what the Americans think, you know, and pisses them off even more. But then he's nice, and he builds this huge battle station for him out of an asteroid that he catches a comet inside of it, and he heats the liquid up with a laser and inflates it into a giant battle station like the Death Star. And that's when it gets good. That's when you get to this book, Citadel. Look at the fucking cover art on that. That's the giant battle station, right? I don't know why it's got a big Spartan face on it, but they haven't said anything in the book about drawing a face on it, but they've made like this big lever to make it turn, and they actually like do some shit on here with springs and nuclear bombs that makes it movable, so he actually can fly it around and shit. He's got all these crazy mirrors in this guy that focuses the sunlight into a giant laser beam that's so many petawatts it can pretty much slice through aliens like giant battleships in a few seconds, and they can't believe it because nobody's ever thought of it. And this guy's just badass, and also got some stuff in here about like engineering and piloting stuff and little mediocre jobs like picking dudes up from spots like where they're salvaging material with lasers and they get into trouble, like their suits start malfunctioning and they're running out of oxygen, you have to go pick them up. A lot of the stuff that would be really good for a video game, like one of those video games where you have a giant spaceship and like one dude just controls the teleporter like in Star Trek. He's like Scotty or the doctor guy or some guy that just like Uhura that just sits and navigates and sees the long range sensors and like what's going on there. Different little mediocre jobs like that. That would make a good video game if you had a game where you had some dumb job where you just sit, like maybe you log in from certain hours and then you replace somebody and you relieve them and you become the navigator for a while, or you become the pilot, or a guy on a turret gun, or a guy that's flying a little shuttle to pick up dudes that are doing engineering work, or maybe you're cutting some salvage off of a thing, like that game, it's the moon game that the NASA made, where you have to draw welds on little circuit boards and stuff to weld and do stuff. That would be fun as hell. I wonder if anybody has done that before. But now I'm on to the third book, The Hot Gate. Look at the fucking missiles coming at this goddamn thing. I love the cover of this. This is why I got into this series to begin with, because I saw this cover and I'm like, holy shit, I'm reading that. Don't care if it's good or not. And I really can't wait. I haven't started on it yet because I'm still reading the Scowsy book, but anyway, that's going to be magnificent. Then while I was at the bookstore yesterday, I got this Shonen Jump with fucking Bakuman on the cover. I haven't even opened this yet, but I saw that. I'm like, holy shit, nice, nice. So then I've heard of this guy Werner Vinge. I got his book Fire Upon the Deep, which seems similar to his John Ringo books. And I also got the second book of that one, Deepness in the Sky, which doesn't have a cover, but whatever. And I got some more John Ringos because those books are so good. I figured he's got some other books that would be awesome too. It has some really good cover art, and it's the same like Bayan Books publishes these, so I figured there's going to be some good ones. Look at this shit. I went to Abe's Books, which is like one of those places it's like Amazon, but it's like for used books. Got these fucking pristine hardcover with like, they still got the plastic on them and shit. And these are like $1 each or something, like $3 maybe with free shipping, or $1 with $3 shipping. And I just stack up on these motherfucking things. Look at these, so cheap. Sometimes you have people like right in the beginning or something, but not really. I mean, nobody's writing in these. Who writes in books? You should have to pay a contact if you're writing in your books. But then, I got this. Orson Scott Card's Ender Companion, authorized version. It's got all the stuff about the Ender universe. It's like an encyclopedia of people and places and things. Pretty much nouns. Technology explains how stuff works in the Ender's game and Battle Room. So I'll eventually get around to reading that maybe. So that's pretty much what I've got now and what I've been working on. But now for the list of things that... I don't have room to move my mouse now. There's so many books stacked around here. Alright, so... books that... oh, I've got it on my phone, never mind. Books that I want to read, but I probably don't have time for. Now, there's this book I've been trying to find. Maybe you guys can help me out with this if you know what it is. I think I might have read about it in Stranger in a Strange Land. But somebody was talking about a character in a book that he was always doing stuff that never worked out right or made people mad at him or something, and he kept making wrong decisions or something like that. And I thought it was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I thought that's what the book was. But then I just looked up the synopsis of it, and it's apparently about racism in the South and something like that. So I don't know if that's the right book or not, but I guess I still want to read To Kill a Mockingbird because it's so popular. Actually, I was just editing this, and I think I remember more. I think it's like a guy who life keeps throwing him lemons, and he keeps making lemonade kind of thing. Like, stuff bad keeps happening to him, and he keeps turning it into good situations, maybe. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe good things keeps happening to him and he keeps fucking it up. But I think it's like he keeps making good stuff happen. So if anybody knows what this book is called, let me know. It might be To Kill a Mockingbird and it's just like the bad synopsis that I read. I don't know. Catch-22, that's one of the books I want to read. Somebody in high school, one of my teachers recommended that I read Catch-22 based on my personality. So I've always thought, oh, I need to read that because it has something to do with me. Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury. That looks like it'd be good. I want to read that. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, maybe. Let's see. Here's a book that I want to read. You guys will appreciate this. The Book of Five Rings. If you've never heard of it, it is about... it's kind of like Sun Tzu's Art of War, but it's written by Musashi Miyamoto, one of the most famous samurai ever lived. And a lot of people in business and like CEOs of companies read this book because it's supposed to be how to tear your enemy down. It's supposed to be like a good way to, like, no matter what you're doing, if you're fighting in a small battle or a giant war in business or whatever kind of situation, is supposed to teach you how to, like, destroy your opponent or something. He's got these 5 books that are based on Earth, Water, Fire, Wind, and the Void that he's had like all this Zen training, and it teaches you different kinds of things about how to do it, I guess. I mean, I haven't read it, so this is just what I'm reading on Wikipedia. But I've heard it's awesome. I think I heard about it on Joe Rogan's podcast. And then I also want to read this book, Moral Lives of Animals, that I saw at the bookstore, and I think I'd heard of it before. It's about, like, animals that do things that people do that show that they have morality. Like, I saw a video the other day of a monkey and a baby. They did this test to see if monkeys and babies would both, like, reach for things to help people. Like, if you drop something, if they pick it up and hand it to you, and where that comes from and why they have this morality. And I've also heard things about, like, dolphins are, like, amazing. They punish their children. They give each other names. They have games. They're creative. Dolphins are pretty much awesome. They have bigger brains than us, but they live in the ocean. So if dolphins lived on land and they had arms and legs and could do things, like if they had fingers and could build and create, they'd probably been on the moon by now. Dolphins, they probably have surpassed us because they have bigger brains compared to their body size. They're just stuck in the fucking water is the only downside to being a dolphin. It's really why you shouldn't fucking eat dolphins. It's like cannibalism. They're smart enough, they have the brain capacity, rather, that pretty much could be humans. That's why we don't eat dogs and cats, probably. Well, Chinese people do, but for the most part, we don't eat dogs and cats because they're domesticated, and we've seen that they're kind of smart. And you also have certain birds, like carrier pigeons that we use, and you've got, like, penguins, a good example. They always, like, do moral things, like huddle up and protect each other in the cold. This book's by Dale Peterson. Yeah. And then you got the fucking other apes, monkeys. I mean, holy shit, how could you mess with apes? Oh, the NHK. Welcome to the NHK novel. Bob Samurai had been talking about this, and he'd bought it when it was like $40 or something. I'm gonna look it up right now. The novel. $175 for paperback. I think it got up to like 400 books or something. This is like, I don't know if it's the English version or what, but it's like only available from Japan. I think like nobody in America publishes it, which is why it's really rare, and you gotta have all this shipping fees too. I don't know why, but it's $175. But I really want to read it. God damn it! And then I've got on here, I've got some kind of like, I want to read something about Russia during the Cold War. Russia kind of interests me because I don't know anything about it, and they have the same kind of space program and technology and military interest that the United States has pretty much. It's pretty much like in the United States that nobody knows about because of the Iron Curtain. I want to know what the hell goes on in Russia or what's been going on the last couple hundred years. But then like Tolstoy's got War and Peace and Anna Karenina and all these crazy books that I don't know if I'd be interested in those. Seem like they're too long and boring, but I don't really know. Then you got like the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, and I don't know if those would interest me, but I kind of want to read Russian literature just to see what it's like. So I wrote that down. I want to read some Isaac Asimov and some Douglas Adams, which I haven't had a chance to read much. I saw the movie I, Robot, and I saw the movie, what's the thing with the, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie. I saw that. Then he's got that book, Thanks for All the Fish, which was a quote from the movie, but is that about the same thing? It's confusing. But anyway, the Hitchhiker's Guide, apparently, Spam told me about this radio series. It's supposed to be really good, that I should listen to that instead of reading the book, or maybe do it before I read the book. So, might do that. Then I've got, like, The Hunger Games. Haven't read The Hunger Games yet, and there's a movie coming out soon, so I want to read that before I watch the movie. Then I've got Brave New World by Aldous Huxley and Death of a Salesman. Those seem kind of interesting, as far as, like, books that high school have on the required reading list. That's pretty much my list of books that I kind of want to read. Classical literature related, anyway. And then I found this book at the bookstore that was too expensive, but it looked pretty nice. I think it was $30-40. It was just like a bunch of 1930s advertisements and posters and stuff for cars and, I don't know, alcoholic drinks and stuff like that. Kind of stuff interests me. And everybody's been reading the Game of Thrones books, but I don't really know. I checked those out at the bookstore and kind of looked boring. Almost looked like just basic movie script kind of stuff, like dialogue. Which I guess dialogue's fine, but I don't know. If anybody's read them, I know Storm's reading them right now, but if, what would you compare them to? Like, what are they like? What other books are they like? Of course, it's going to be a while because I got this huge pile of books that I got to read first. But anyway, that's the books that I kind of want to read but don't have time for.